remarkable resemblance to modern man, but a whole lot rougher and more robust.
Hey, this is Unrefined Podcast. Welcome to another episode.
Hey folks, welcome to another exciting episode of Unrefined Podcast. This is Lindsay Waters and I'm here with my co-host Brandon Spain.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing?
And man, we've got a really exciting show and a great guest today. Kind of a legend. I don't mind calling him a legend in his field.
He is.
M.K. Davis. We've been wanting to kind of just dip our toe into the subject of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and we're going to talk about some other things as well, but I couldn't think of a better person to have on the show. I've known him for about 20 years or more and friends with his sons. Crashed on his couch and on his triple-decker bunk bed before, and just, yeah, really excited to have him on the show. Welcome to the show, M.K. Davis.
Well, thanks for having me on there, Lindsay and Brandon.
I'd love to see a triple-decker bunk bed. I've never seen one of them before.
Yeah, man. Yeah, his sons. Well, I guess we'll just go ahead and dive right in here. MK, I guess we can just start. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I mean, I kind of backed into the Bigfoot business or Bigfoot world kind of unexpectedly. I was doing astrophotography, which was, taking space photos with a telescope. And in the early days of the internet, some frames from the Patterson film leaked out that were from the original master, and they were so much better than anything that they've ever shown on television or had in the theaters for that matter. And I saw it and I recognized that they had been treated much the way that you would an astrophoto, to make the contrast and everything boost. And I got curious about it, and I began to make an inquiry about where this came from, and I knew that you can't get a good photo from a bad film, and so there must be a really good version of this film somewhere, and I just began to start a search for it, and the search has lasted for darn near 30 years now.
Wow.
Wow.
And I continue on, not just searching for frames, but after a while, you realize what you're looking at is it has the signature of authenticity on it, and you start to ask other questions. Exactly what am I looking at? And so it began to evolve into other things, and so here I am, to this many years later, still asking questions.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, I've known you 20 or more years, and for whatever reason, I had never thought to ask you or had never talked about it with your family. What got you into this subject? So yeah. I guess for our listeners, could you just go into the Patterson Gimlin film a little bit? What is it? Who made it? Where were they? Things like that.
Yeah, now the film was taken in Northern California, and it was taken along a drainage called Bluff Creek Drainage. It's in Six Rivers National Forest. That's gold country for, and I'm sure everybody's heard of the California Gold Rush. Well, that was right in the middle of it. Along the Klamath River was just downstream. It's famous for a lot of things, but gold is one of them. It's got black sand, shale sand, it's black when it's wet. It's probably a light blue when it's dried. It's not normal sand. It's shale is made of little platelets. It's very firm. It doesn't just cave away real easy. Uh, all of that comes into importance when you start to go into some of the details of like the depth of the tracks and things like that. But that's where it was taken, and there's still a lot of mystery surrounding the film. I've cleared up a good bit, but there's still some, and the reason why is because of the two men who took the film didn't adequately explain it, and because of that, the film suffered greatly at first, because people are thinking along the lines of the absurdities of having something like this on video or film, and when someone says something that is provably untrue, then the first thoughts is that it's a hoax, and so uh, going down the roads and the rabbit holes that I've been in, after a while you realize that the film has the power to just stand on its own. It really doesn't need explanation. Once you get to the really good versions of it and you stabilize it, where it's not all over the screen. You can see the biomechanics, and it's the same biomechanics that we see every day in life, with shoulder blades moving up and down under the skin, things like that. It's just not, it's not any way that the film itself is a hoax, but the storyline, the story that they give is patently untrue. And so yeah, it can be proved to be untrue. And it was essentially early on, people asked the same questions that I did. But it they were inadequately addressed, and so it was kind of taken to be hokey, perhaps a hoax, and it wasn't given enough serious thought because of that. But nowadays, it's enjoyed a renaissance because of the ability to take all of the flaws out of the film, and you can see that the what's on it is whatever it is very much real.
Hey, my unrefined friends. I just wanted to tell you guys that I am so thankful that you are my life. Some of our best fans have been writing to us, and I just so encouraged about how lives are being transformed and people are getting something out of this podcast. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why we're doing this, is to glorify Jesus and to just look at the world and have a more open view of the seen and the unseen and the supernatural in the world. So while we're doing that, we're going to handle all different kinds of topics. But see, what I'd like for you to be involved in or part of is our members only group. Things that are coming in our members only group that are going to just blow your mind. Not to mention, there's going to be episodes in there that you won't be able to hear just on the normal episode channel. So make sure to visit our website at unrefinedpodcast.com and check out our members only community. I just can't stress the fact that, we're after building a community, and there's so much out there, you guys, and there's so much coming. I really believe we need to build these strong communities of Christ followers to be able to handle what might be coming in the future days. We're sure that you'd be a good fit, and we cannot wait. I can't wait to see you there. When I was younger, I remember this video, and I remember thinking it was really kind of hokey. I thought it was somebody in a suit. I was a kid. I didn't know any different. But as I've become more in the fringe circles, and as I've watched you like work on the video on your blog, I mean, to me, it's like irrefutable. I mean, I don't see how anybody could say it's a fraud.
Well, there's a lot fewer people that say that now. Uh, and as the older generation of scientists that were there around when that first came out, they began to pass away and retire. The newer generation is more accepting, especially in the light of much better evidence, much better technology, and uh, and so hopefully this thing will get in the books. Once it gets in the books, then I think science will follow its proper course.
Yeah. Well, MK, let me ask you this, just to kind of give us some, like, I guess, a foundation here. In your opinion, what are the Bigfoot? What do what is your speculation or theory of what they are?
Well, it's kind of a interesting question. It's the Bigfoot around that area are more human-like, uh, and the Hoopa Indians told me that they were hybrids, that they were as a result of the gold rush. There were like 10,000 Chinese in that area with their families, living out in the woods, and he says there were kidnappings and things like that.
Wow.
They tend to be in that area more human like, uh, and they're a little rougher looking when you get out away into other areas. But still, they still bear a remarkable resemblance to modern man, but a whole lot rougher and more robust.
Hmm.
Wow, man, that is interesting. Well, I remember I used to talk with you about. I don't know if your thinking's changed on it or not. It sounds like it has, but you used to talk about the native peoples in that area had these shamans that would kind of live off away secluded and would sometimes just kind of go feral. Am I remembering that correctly? And that at one time you wondered if that didn't relate to this?
Yeah, they still talk about that to this day. Uh, Skinwalkers are supposed to be something like that.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
they wear a skin and they just kind of take on the persona of a beast. But yeah, I don't think that's what you're seeing there on the Patterson film.
Mm.
No.
Uh,
Mm-mm.
there's a gentleman in Oklahoma by the name of Todd Gatewood, and he asked me if I had any quality pictures that he could work with this some of the brand new technology called upscaling, and I sent him that very same picture that I first saw, and when he sent it back, I was just stunned at how much improvement he it made. Uh, and it became very clear. You can look at it that you're not looking at the face of an ape.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
You're very clear that you're looking at a human of some sort, but with certain primitive features. Uh, so I'm guessing that they'll probably find that it when they are able to examine one, that it's a human being, but probably not us. Uh, it's not much way that we could live in that environment on the land itself and be that big. We would immediately lose weight and become kind of lean and sometimes even gaunt.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to be that robust, there's another factor there is the metabolism and the ability to process are different. Uh, so that's a fair assumption, I think.
Wow. So MK, you have kind of your own Bluff Creek experience. Uh, where you looked over some footage you had taken there and saw something. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this occurred back in 2008, and when we went into Bluff Creek, we went there twice that year. We went there during the summer, and then we came back in October. And we were crossing the creek, and I looked down, and there was what appeared to be a fetus floating in the creek
Oh, wow.
with an umbilical cord on it, and it had two small appendages on it. And we picked it up and put it in a sample bag, and we made our way on across the creek and went up the mountain to what I would call a lair. It's about maybe 1,500 feet up the side of that mountain, about 45-degree slope. And there's a waterfall coming down through that little lair. And in the lair was a deer carcass. And all around the deer carcass were Bigfoot tracks. And I was up there. My two friends, Don Monroe and Ken Iddings, they had foot troubles, and they sat down and were dressing their feet and taking care of their feet. And I went ahead and left and went down the hill by myself. And I got down to the bottom, and I crossed the creek, and I went back upstream on the other side along a little trail. And I came back out into the creek, and I was just going to wait on them and film them as they came back, up the creek. And I filmed there, up and down both ways. And then I saw them, I filmed them, I went down there and talked to them, and that was that. Well, when I got home, a friend of mine, he had lost his job, and he said he was trying to start a film and photo business, with selling the rights to publish,
Yes, sir.
And I loaned him. I said, take this tape I took in Northern California. You're welcome to anything on it. And just trying to be helpful. Well, I didn't get it back for 7 years.
Wow.
In fact, I had to get it back by getting a third party to intervene. And finally, I got it back, and I put it in my little camera and ran it through my computer. This was the little miniature tapes that are uncompressed. I forgot what they call them, HD tapes or HDV tapes or something like that.
Yeah.
But they it's real good quality. And I was watching it, and I saw something on it move. And I looked close, and it was something white or brighter colored. And when I got to looking close, it was someone sitting there at the edge of the creek, and they had this cloth or leather or something that was pliable, and they were wrapping something up in it. So I stopped, and I captured still frames and brightened them up, and I could see that it wasn't wearing clothes. It was one uniform color all the way, and it had it apparently had something that it was wrapping up, and this was right upstream from where we had found that fetus. So my mind goes back to it all the time, because that 7 years had gone by, and in 7 years you struggle a little bit with the details. And I watched it over and over, and I did the best I could to bring it out, because it was in deep shadow. And on the video, it there was a rock clack, two rocks banging together like you would take them in your fists and bang them. And when that happened, this person or whoever it was suddenly backed into the brush and disappeared into the brush.
Mm.
And I walked right by it.
Wow.
I probably was within 10 or 15 feet of it.
Wow.
Never saw it or had any idea it was anything there. I talked to my two friends, and we went back to the truck, and we ended up, leaving. And I found this 7 years later, which was anticlimactic to me. I should have found it. I needed to find it. I needed to come out of the woods with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It it's pretty clear that as much sign as we saw there that day, that it was one of them.
Wow.
And whatever it had, it looked like, there were firemen in there, fighting the wildfires that previous summer.
Right.
And so I think it had something that they had left behind, or either something that it had constructed. Uh, it's very common to make what they call a parfletch way back in the day
Mm-hmm.
to carry your personal things in. And it's nothing but a piece of leather that you fold over and tie it off,
Mm-hmm.
just very simple.
Yeah.
And it kind of looked like it was something like that, uh, but nevertheless, I call it, to this day, I call it the croucher,
Mm.
because it was just crouching there.
Yeah.
I got real good musculature in the legs, the lower legs, that you could see when you brightened the video up. It was just quite a bit of detail on it. I was really surprised and amazed. But I never saw it with my eyes in my brain as it was happening.
Yeah.
So I guess give us a little bit of your emotional state when you realized that, when you went back over the footage and realized there's something there. What are you feeling when that you were close to this entity? What were you feeling?
Well, I had mixed emotions about it. The thing about it is that the 7 year drought there, uh, it kind of leaves you, it buffers things.
Mm-hmm.
If I had found this thing immediately, I would have been ecstatic,
Mm-hmm.
but it seemed to be more anticlimactic. It was almost like looking at someone else's video, because I had shot so much other video in that previous 7 years, that, it's like, well, I wished I had not loaned it to my friend, who's, I guess he's not my friend anymore. We don't talk. I don't know why he kept it like that.
Well, did he find it that on the video? Did he see it?
Not
Or
that not that I'm aware of. He
That's
never has said anything.
that's
Mm.
good. I'm glad he didn't, because you probably would have never gotten it back then.
Probably not.
Wow.
Yeah. So could you tell what the gender? I hesitate to even use that word nowadays, but could you tell what the sex of the entity was? Was it male or female?
Well, I assume that it's male.
Okay.
I didn't see anything that would indicate a female. Uh, it it was uh, it was in the business of, I guess, walking that stream. That the Bluff Creek goes down to the Klamath River, and there's a salmon run twice a year in the Klamath River. And they were in the middle of the fall salmon run, and they it's about it was probably 25 miles downstream before you hit the Klamath. So I'm just assuming that perhaps it was a male going down there after salmon.
Yeah.
But there again, what was the fetus?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
still have that? I mean, obviously that.
no, I think it went bad on us and got to smelling so bad. Don threw it away, and we all have regrets about that too. I got it on film, and I got it on video. And still photos, but it quickly deteriorated.
So did it
Yeah.
look human? Did it look more like an animal?
It was something in it in the membrane. You could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of semi-transparent. It had like a skin over it.
Mm-hmm.
It whatever it was in, it was darker underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was the right time of the year for bears. So that's something that has haunted me.
Mm-hmm.
That one trip was so full of happenings. Uh, and yeah, you talking about being a researcher, but yeah, the fact of the matter is that you're researching something that virtually nothing is known about. So it's hard to be good at it. If I think that I have developed a kind of a body of knowledge, but a lot of it's been through the hard way, like this trip,
Mm-hmm.
because it the failures, your failure to act, the failure to preserve, the failure to all of that comes back and haunts you later, and you it's permanently on your mind, and so it serves as a fail safe for any future endeavors, to keep you from making the same mistakes. But nevertheless, I think if there's any one thing about the Bigfoot community is that there's not enough cooperation.
Mm.
That people should, if they got along better, they might would share a little more and learn a little bit about what not to do. It's what not to do is that get you.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. I want to pull on some of this knowledge that you have. I have a few questions, if you're all right with that. The first one is, have you heard and I don't know if it's a myth or if it's just what I call shade tree theology kind of thing, or a shade tree, whatever, that Bigfoot only get filmed when they want to get filmed, that they have some kind of sixth sense that they know when they're being filmed, like you can't catch them on game cameras and all that? Or do you think that they're just like any of us, they could be walked upon and surprised and all that? What do you think about that, MK?
It doesn't happen very often, as far as just stumbling upon one.
Yeah.
I think that they have certain sensitivities. I've seen on video from East Texas where one avoided infrared light. They kept a camera constantly on this box of food on a picnic table, and it came up and it avoided the light.
Wow.
And it most certainly had to have seen it to avoid it. So I take that as at least they have a wider range of vision or night vision than we do, than the modern man does.
Hmm.
And so that kind of thing explains a good bit too, also.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they're super equipped, or even hyper equipped, with the spiritual protections. But people have postulated that, down through the years, I guess in an effort to explain the difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
People search for a reason. It's some of it is just plain rarity, and other, we might find out at some point in time, and what we learn might surprise us. There's been people who've seen them in broad daylight. I can tell you about a nurse who went camping in Del Norte County in Northern California,
Mm-hmm.
and she had to use the restroom, and she went away from the camp, and she was kind of in this little flat with a lot of ferns and stuff, and she pulled her pants down to go, and she looked across the little clearing, and here comes a Bigfoot, and it's walking straight toward her, just unbroken strides, and she stands up, pulls her pants up, and it walks right by her within 15 feet of her.
Wow.
And she says it never turned its head, but it cut its eyes at her.
Wow.
And she said it was pretty rough looking. It was a female. It looked old. It had a festering wound on its shoulder. And she says, but it had just really gorgeous eyes. The eyes were just beautiful. They had long, flat eyelashes.
Wow.
Which is one of the things that Todd Gatewood discovered on the Patterson subject, is that it has very long eyelashes. That's how good the resolution is on that frame.
Wow.
Yeah,
at this point in time.
That's incredible to see eyelashes. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, so
Mm.
what about their smell? Do they is that a myth, or is that true? Do they smell, or is it depend on what part of the country or what?
Well, I think that the smell thing it remains unproven,
Okay.
because there's plenty of cases where Bigfoot has been close and the smell was not a factor.
Yeah.
For instance, right then, where you're 15 feet from it and it don't stink.
Yeah.
Well, they say, some people say they're like apes. They got a gland, that they can put on you.
Hmm.
But that is yet to be proven.
Yeah.
And I know with the Patterson film, it certainly does not smack of ape at all. That if that's the standard, they need to drop the ape thing, because that's no ape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a good segue into something I wanted to ask you. In the South, you hear reports of what has been called the skunk ape, and I believe there's even a video of one up around Tunica that's gotten some attention. I remember seeing it on what was this show called? Paranormal Caught on Camera, where a guy up around Tunica filmed something, just kind of leaned against a tree, it looked like to me. Are skunk apes kind of the southern version of Sasquatch, to your knowledge, or are they something different, or what do you make of them?
I tend to think not. I don't think that they are Sasquatch. The reports that they give, they tend to go toward something more like an animal or a monster. They call them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The for instance, the Honey Island monster down in South Louisiana. They first saw it. It was on all fours.
Oh wow.
And when they walked up to where it was, they saw where it had climbed down out of a tree and left claw marks.
Mm.
So, if you take that to be true, then it doesn't jibe with the descriptions that they have for Sasquatch. in the Pacific Northwest
Yeah.
or other areas.
I think people tend to lump things together, and I think we need to remember that there could be lots of different things going on here that aren't necessarily related.
Well, a swamp is kind of a breeding ground for the unusual.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's a lot of them are just about impenetrable, and that area down there and is a kind of an Amazon type setting.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a temperate version of the Amazon. It anything could be in there certainly, and at first it seemed the weird looking feet, the weird looking tracks that it left. People dismissed it at first, but late in 2015, I found my own tracks that looked like that,
Mm.
and you know, I knew that I wasn't being snookered because I had taken my wife to New Orleans and dropped her off at the hospital to stay with a friend, and I just spontaneously went by Honey Island, and no one knew I was coming, and it wasn't on a trail, you know, that anyone would be leaving something, you know, for someone to find. It was a genuine track. I'm convinced of that, and it was very, very similar to what Harlan Ford had found back in the '60s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there. What it is yet to be determined.
Yeah.
Yeah, Louisiana swamps.
I wouldn't want to meet up with it by myself, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would either. I mean, there's no telling. I was just about to say, there's no in Louisiana swamps. There's probably animals in there that hadn't even been categorized. I mean, I'm not even talking about Sasquatch or skunk apes, just bugs and gator. I mean, you know, it's such a interesting ecosystem. So there's no telling what's down there.
Well, it interacts or interconnects with a lot of other places. They all kind of run together down there. You got the Bogochita swamps. You got the Red River. You've got the Ouachita. You got the Atchafalaya. And then the Pearl River. It's massive down there, and so in the day, pirates used to hide in there, and they buried their treasure. They know that they did. And other people used to. I mean, other things. The guy. What's the guy on the Free State of Jones? I forgot the man's name. But he hid out in there for a long time. Nobody could find him. It's just too dense. They can't even cut the timber most of the time. The last timber cut out of there was 1880s. So you know it's just, you know, whatever's there is just there. I got an interesting thermal video. It's been what was probably 2018 or 19 in November, and it looks like it could be the monster himself. But thermal doesn't give you a lot of detail. It just tells you that the basic shape and that is heat. But it looks like the description of it, you know, as the way it's described.
Yeah. Well, since this is kind of my wheelhouse, if Lindsay will give me a chance here, I want to switch gears right now, and this is what I really wanted to ask you about. And let me give you a little backstory of why I want to ask you about it. Is we just Lindsay and I and my wife Sandy, we just watched a video series on the Giants by Skywatch TV that just got put out. The Gilberts and I think Doug Van Dorn was on there, and there was some other people, but there was a whole section where they talked about, I guess it's you and Don that found some Nephilim skulls at a place in the basement, and there's some
Oh yeah, yeah.
video footage. I want to hear all about that, please.
They're no longer down there, and
Yeah.
but about 40 years ago, 40 plus years ago, Don was there, and the lady was sweet on him. She liked him a lot, and the lady that ran it, and she let him go downstairs, and she showed him the skulls. And at that time, there was another skull with them that was maybe double the size, and
Wow.
it had double rows of teeth on the top side. The bottom side had one row, but they were overcrowded. There was way more teeth than should have been in his mouth. And the skull was stained with bat guano, and it had been repaired on the backside with some plaster.
Okay. So you couldn't tell if it was had a suture in it from that what is it called cradle boarding. So you couldn't tell if it had been cradle boarded or not, did you?
It did not appear to have been cradle boarded to me.
Yeah.
But one thing I could tell about it was that its heritage came from the South Pacific.
Wow.
It had a rocker jaw, which is specific to Polynesians.
Well,
the jaw actually curves up on the chin, and if you were to place it on the table, you could rock it like a rocking chair.
Oh, wow.
interesting. Well, and just the simple fact it had double rows of teeth. I mean, that's not, you can't do that in real life. You know, it has to come like that. So that just blows me away. So how many skulls was it total that y'all saw down there?
I saw. I'd have to look at the picture, but I think 1, 2, 3. I think it was 4 complete and 1 partial. And all of the ones I saw had been killed, traumatically killed. Their skulls had been caved in. I did not see the one he took pictures of back 40 plus years ago, though, because it was long gone. It was long gone. The Repatriation Act, when they passed it in the 90s,
right,
caused people to either turn them into the Indians or either hide them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe that they would have given a skull that was not an Indian to an Indian to bury. It doesn't seem to be the scientific way.
Well, yeah, I remember the controversy about Kennewick, man, related to that.
It'd be similar. This was definitely a Polynesian. Polynesians also had a peculiar skull shape, but this was not like a normal Polynesian. It was giant.
Right.
It was huge. So what it was doing in Nevada, in a cave in Nevada, I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy. That blows me away. Well, let me ask you this. So it was a Polynesian giant, and what strikes me as bizarre, MK, is the fact that they thought that the Polynesian giants migrated from North America to Polynesia. And to find a Polynesian back in North America is interesting in the whole. Yeah, I know this is it's a real rough science. It's not totally scientific, but just kind of the how it goes that they migrated to the Polynesian islands from North America, and that was just bizarre.
Did they show the giant handprint that Don and I found?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. I don't remember.
Tell us about it, please.
Oh, in Lovelock Cave, we went into Lovelock Cave. I'm trying to think of what year it was. Maybe 2014, maybe. I'm not sure. I can look at my videos that I took, but we went in there and they had built a observation deck in there.
It's still there.
Yeah, and they kind of pulled some of the guano down from the walls and moved it to the center to level things. And when they did, they exposed this giant handprint on the wall made from soot.
Mm.
You know, that taffy tar like soot from fires and
Yes, sir.
and meat. You know,
Yeah.
fat.
Yeah.
It was like a tar. I said, "Don, that's a handprint," and it was. 18 inches tall.
Wow.
It was just ridiculous. You can look at it on the video how big it is, and you could see down every finger. You could see where it had pulled that finger or that hand off of that wall and left a little ridge of that sticky stuff, you know, right down the middle of it.
Well, here's the $10,000 question: did it have 6 fingers?
Yeah, how many fingers?
it had 5.
5. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 4 and a thumb.
4 and a thumb. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think every Nephilim had 6 fingers. I think that's an anomaly too. You know, kind of like how Bigfoot's different. You know, so. But
I told Don. I said, Don, we're going to have to publish this because somebody's going to come in here and find it behind us, and they'll publish it.
Yep.
And because it's in a public cave.
Mm-hmm.
And so we stopped at McDonald's in one of the town, maybe it was Fallon, and I published it to my little blog site and notified a few people that I knew would be interested. And I notified a friend in California, and I told him, I says, if you want to see this thing, you better get down here right now as quick as possible because some mysterious person is going to cause it to disappear. As soon as they find out it's here.
Which leads into my next question. All right, do you buy the whole black suited guys coming and getting the skulls and bones like from the Smithsonian or from some unknown government agency, or is that just a myth?
Well, I didn't know what they would be wearing when they came, but I felt certain they would come. Enough to he got on down there, thank goodness, and he brought a friend of his, and they hustled on down there. Don met him, and he showed them where it was, and they recorded it on their own video, and did some other things to verify, and then that November it was gone. Somebody had used high pressure water. That was high pressure enough to cut the rock.
Oh wow!
And that leads me to believe military there because that's what they use. That's what they use to clean those aircraft engines, jet engines. You know, it'll cut almost anything off there. And that would mean that they would have to pull a big truck up with pumps that were they're on the back of a flatbed. And they run a hose up there to the cave. It would be an operation that they would have to make sure nobody came upon, you know. So later on when we did come back and it was gone, the algae had begun to grow on the rock. And the rock had been there for eons. You know, back away from the light and moisture. So there was no algae on it until they wet it. And I knew then that it was somebody that had some pull with the military.
Yeah, which makes me think it's more than just the Smithsonian. I mean, I know it's a government entity, but yeah, you're talking military there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, that's their prerogative. If they want to destroy history, that's fine. I mean, it's not. I can't stop the military, but uh, it. Yeah, I scratch my head and wonder why.
Yeah, why?
But
That's what I was going to ask you. Why? What's your theory, MK? Why do you think they do that?
I really don't know the answer to that. That's a good question. Well, I know that the area around the Great Basin, it's got like 80 basins all tied to each other.
Right.
Part of it goes on down to Area 51. When they bought the land for Area 51, they sent people on horseback to find any obscure people that might be living in those mountains and warn them that it had been purchased by the government and they were going to be doing perhaps atomic testing. They needed to get out. They said that they ran into, and I quote, not an old miner, but an ancient. They called him an ancient. I forgot the other term, but it was a real odd way of saying that this was not normal.
Mm.
And they said he fought them with such ferocity that they decided to leave him there.
Wow.
Wow, man.
Now that was way back up in the mountains, but in the same general locale as the red-haired giants and Lovelock Cave and all of that. So whatever reason, I'm trying to think of that other word. They didn't call him a miner. An ancient. So I'll find it. I've got it written down somewhere. But it was a term that they purposely and carefully chose to describe what they found, that it wasn't normal. It wasn't a person that you could communicate with. And it fought them. Who fights the government off?
Yeah.
And they decided to leave him. Why would they leave a human being, in there to be radiated? It smacks of a kind of a cover up type thing.
Well, just I guess to backtrack a little bit to the red-haired giant, the photo Don's photo that you analyzed. I watched a video on it earlier. I think it was one of yours. Did you see what you thought might be still red hair clinging to that skull? Did I hear that correctly?
It might have been. The pictures are available, but you got to remember he took those pictures with a disposable camera.
Oh wow, man! You have not disappointed in
that is. You'll find that term in Annie Jacobson's book on Area 51, where they describe that battle they had with that ancient person.
Was it a Native American? I mean, an Indian?
Oh, no. They said it was something from long ago.
Wow.
We'll check it out. Go through all the terms.
Ancient.
Anunnaki. Yeah.
They decided to leave him there. They couldn't do battle with him too well.
Yeah.
Well, they made short order of the giant in Kandahar, supposedly, if you believe that story. So if they couldn't handle a little a non-giant type being, he must have been pretty power packed, So
yeah, must have been.
Yeah,
that's
fascinating. I'm gonna check that out.
Well, man, I guess we could go ahead and start landing the plane here. I don't know. I guess, where do you see kind of the Bigfoot quest, the Bigfoot question going, I guess, in the next 10 years or so? MK?
I think they're pouring a lot of effort into DNA,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't see DNA actually accomplishing the task. There's a lot of reasons why.
Hmm.
The bar for proving the existence of a Bigfoot is very high.
Mm.
And it's sort of like the film when it came out. A lot of people found fault with the film for this reason or that reason.
Hmm.
Some of it was for no reason, but it's the same almost with the DNA. You know, if the DNA conclusion is that it's a human, they'll say, well, it had human contamination.
Mm. Yeah, I
You
guess
know,
they got
and
workarounds for everything.
it's too expensive to repeat over and over again.
Yeah.
Right.
And the people have come in with their evidence that it took them a whole career to find, and then they say, well, go find us some more. This is contaminated, and you've come to find out it probably isn't. That it's probably uh, exactly what Todd Gatewood shows on his image.
Mm.
It's a human of some sort. It's got humanity in it,
Yeah.
and so but I don't know. Sometimes I think people are actually don't want it. Even the Bigfooters themselves,
Yeah.
they
But
may perhaps enjoy the mystery too much.
Wow.
well, imagine this. I mean, it's like it requires more evidence for Bigfoot than it does for evolution. And I'm going to play my card there. I mean, that's just crazy to me. These physicists and stuff can come up with these theories about how Big Bang or whatever. I mean, and it takes very little evidence for it to be scientific fact taught in schools. However, Bigfoot requires such a insurmountable amount of evidence to be proven.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And when most of the people like myself, I think that it needs to be in a book.
Yeah,
There's sufficient evidence to put it in a book.
Yeah.
I agree.
But uh, I think that some people see it more like a vehicle.
Hmm.
Mm.
Interesting.
That it can take them somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I get what you're saying now.
and
Yeah,
yeah, and so they really enjoy the ride, and they don't want the ride to end.
hmm.
And I don't know that it would even end, but they need to think it through a little more.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Oh man, MK, that was a fun conversation, man. Thanks for kind of taking us on your journey there.
Well, thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
from Benton to Bluff Creek.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Wow, we appreciate that.
It's such an honor to have you on our show. Seriously, I mean, you just don't know. I guess I'm geeking out because you're on our show. So
Yeah.
Well, I'm more than happy to come, and if you want me to come back at some other time, I'll be happy to come back.
Yeah,
hey,
for sure.
we might take you up on that now. Thanks for listening and supporting us. And remember, stay naturally supernatural.